Thank you very much. So, can I welcome all members and officers to this meeting of the Social Services, Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which has been convened as a hybrid meeting. The meeting has been recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as possible following the meeting. The meeting agenda pack can also be viewed on the Council's website. Everyone participating in the meeting will be attending either in the Council chamber or from remote locations. Members attending remotely must keep their cameras on for the duration of the meeting. However, all attendees should keep their microphones off until invited to speak, please. Members and officers can indicate they want to speak by pressing the hands up icon. In the event of any vote, the scrutiny officer will call out the names of the members who will then cast their vote. I will now proceed to the agenda of business. So, item number 1. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies for absence from Councillor Dalla Hughes, Councillor Joanna Llewellyn Hopkins and Councillor Richard Williams. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 2. Oh, is there any more? Sorry, no. Just checking. No. Item number 2, declarations of interest. If any member has an interest to declare in any matter on the agenda, please click on the raised hand icon and I will come to you in turn for your declaration. I think as we progress, if you have a declaration, just pop your hand up. We'll be fine with that.
One hand up.
Oh, apologies. Councillor Bledsoe?
Thank you, Chair. I am a trustee and registered at Companies House on Wild Mill Community Centre as such. I will currently do that as a personal interest. Given the agenda item, I'll change that if the nature of the discussion changes.
Thank you. Any more for any more? Councillor Lewis?
Yeah, I run William Trigg Community Centre in Blaengarrow on licence from BCBC, so that would be probably a personal interest.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine, lovely. Thank you. Okie dokie. Moving on, item 3, approval of minutes. Please can I have a mover and a seconder for each of the sets of minutes from the 11th of September and the 25th, please. Mover?
Can move the first, Chair.
Thank you, Colin.
I'll second, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you. So move and second. Yeah. Thank you. Item number 4. So I'll bring us to the annual corporate safeguarding report now, and I will ask the officer to briefly introduce the report. I will then call upon members who indicate they wish to speak by clicking on the raised hand icon in turn. Thank you. I don't know who's... There you go. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Chair. For the purpose of recording, I'm Claire Marchant, Corporate Director of Social Services and Wellbeing in Bridgend, and I'm really pleased this morning to present for scrutiny consideration the annual corporate safeguarding report for the financial year 2024 to 25 for your consideration. The annual safeguarding report is something which very much covers the whole council responsibility around safeguarding. As we know, safeguarding is everybody's responsibility, and there are specific duties and requirements on each directorate within the council in terms of corporate safeguarding and in terms of compliance with our corporate safeguarding policy, which has just been revisited and approved by Cabinet. So as such, the annual corporate safeguarding report includes details on adult social care, children and family services, education, early years and young people, around workforce, housing, partnership and community safety and violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence, placement sufficiency, out of county placements and operating without registration, and other key areas of focus that we have taken forward as a corporate safeguarding board during the last year. And I'm really pleased that not just colleagues from social services and wellbeing who are here in the chamber, but colleagues from education, early years and young people and housing are here as well this morning to support answering any questions that members may have. So the report highlights changes in both adult and children and family services. We continue to see a very high level of contact into services, but it's really pleasing to see that we've developed a more preventative and early intervention approach to dealing with those referrals as they come in from both children and families, from partners, from adults, and particularly the success of the consultation lines that we've introduced across both services. We've talked previously in this committee when we've considered the outcome of the CIW inspection into children and family services around the integration in that one front door and the integration of early help services into that front door, which means that more families are getting that right response from the right person at the right time more quickly there. Always more to do, always more that we're keen to progress, but last year clearly has been a year of significant progress. It's also pleasing to note that in terms of our performance in relation to deprivation of liberty safeguards, that we're in a good position around both the amount of time and the amount of time that individuals have to wait for that, and we do compare well with other authorities in that respect. We know that the last year has seen a significant reduction in terms of the number of children on the Child Protection Register, and the report includes both that information, and we do look through corporate safeguarding lens as well about the numbers progressing through the public law outline and into care proceedings and the number of care experienced children as well. In terms of areas of pressure, and I know both the Scrutiny Committee and the Education, Early Years and Young People Scrutiny Committee have been concerned around behaviours in schools over the last year. We know that there's a pressure point around fixed term exclusions within the county borough, and that's something which we consider through the safeguarding lens within our corporate safeguarding arrangement, and particularly look at the vulnerability of those children and young people and how we work across services and across directorates to support those particular children and young people. We're also particularly concerned in terms of the safety of our workforce, and we're always cognizant to make sure that we understand where we are in terms of our safe recruitment policies and our DBS compliance right across the council and compliance with training requirements as well. The report also includes information around our community safety partnership, and there's a strong interrelationship, isn't there, between community safety and safeguarding, and particularly that comes to the fore when we're looking at issues such as exploitation, which have that contextual element and are very focused on place. So I'm hoping that our Scrutiny Committee consider that this report covers all the key aspects of safeguarding that you would wish to scrutinise, and following scrutiny by this committee and any amendments we make as a result of that scrutiny, we'll be bringing this report forward for Cabinet consideration. So thank you, Chair, and myself and colleagues will be very happy to take questions.
Thank you for that. Just before we progress, though, can I just ask Councillor James and Councillor Apsey to pop their cameras on, because I believe you're both online, so we need those on, please. Thank you. Councillor Apsey? Yep.
Yeah, I've got some problems with my camera I've had since this update, so it's not logging me in earlier on, but I am here.
Right. Okay, that's fine, as long as we know you're here, just in case we have to have a vote on anything or anything like that, so just for process.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, have you contacted IT about it as well?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, thank you. Okie dokie. Right, so thank you very much, Claire, for that overview of the safeguarding report, which has come to us. It's always good to see it. I just want to make everyone aware that obviously there's a lot of items in this safeguarding report that we have already done quite deep dives on in terms of scrutiny. So what we've decided as a committee is that we're not going to go on to those items again and rehearse them here again, because we've already done those. There's one or two items in here that we would like to have a look at, though. So with that, I am going to turn to my lovely committee members. So I believe I have Councillor Haynes first. Oh, no, my apologies. Yeah, no, I believe it's Councillor Davis, actually, page 20. No?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say there's a really good report reflecting fantastic progress. So hats off to Claire and her teams. As a councillor, we're all corporate parents, and I think there's nothing more reassuring really than a good picture of our overall safeguarding responsibilities and issues. So thanks for that. Really appreciate it. And all the hard work behind this report, which is massive and ongoing, because you just can't rest. So just want a little bit of clarity for councillors and for the public really, Claire. In terms of page 20, as Freya said, adult social care, it talks about the 3-tier model of practice. And that's obviously a core where you're working for that particular part of the social services teams. So I wonder if you could say a little bit about the 3-tier model of practice, what it entails. And then also my second question then, a couple of paragraphs down then, it talks about Social Services Wellbeing Act 2014, places a duty on all to report an adult at risk. I wonder if you could just clarify what you mean by on all. So 2 questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the questions, Councillor Davis, and for the comments as well. In terms of that 3-tier model, in adult social care, we undertook a very detailed review of the operating model, going back now probably about 2 years ago. Actually, it was a review which looked at absolutely everything that we do in terms of social work functions particularly, but not just social work, looking at our integrated teams to get to a position where we understood whether we were organising ourselves and whether our operating model was the most optimal to deliver the best outcomes for individuals, and particularly to deliver our strength-based outcomes model of social work practice, which we work to here in Bridgend. The outcome of that model was that of that review was that we implemented from February 2024 a 3-tier operating model within adult social care. Tier 1, as referred to in the report, is the Early Intervention and Prevention Hub, and that includes all of our short-term services and our short-term social work. The key social work functions there are the EIPH as referred to within the report, where all of our referrals for information, advice and assistance and for any initial proportionate assessments come in, and both information, advice and assistance is provided, and then that proportionate assessment where that is indicated as being required. Also, our hospital social work team sits within that tier 1. Tier 2 then is our long-term social work teams, which are those teams that support individuals with long-term care and support needs. They're generic teams, I would call them. They are integrated teams with, I think, 14 health and social care professionals co-located in 3 localities across the county borough, coterminous with health board primary care clusters, so lots of joint work in there between primary and community services. And then tier 3 is our specialist social work services, which are community learning disabilities, community mental health teams, substance misuse services, and adult mental health team as well. So those are the more specialist teams that require a more specialist focus from those social work professionals. And again, they work in not as integrated as those tier 2 teams, but they work in a integrated system, I would say, and co-located where possible with health colleagues. So that's the operating model. It's been in place now for over 18 months, coming up towards 2 years. We've done an internal evaluation of its effectiveness, and we're now commissioning an external evaluation as well, which I'm sure Scrutiny may be interested in when that's completed, to ensure that it's doing what we set out in terms of the objectives and outcomes set for that operating model. In terms of the duty to report, that's set out in Wales safeguarding procedures. That's every public servant across Wales. That includes all councillors. It includes anybody who's employed by a local authority in any capacity. That could either be paid employment or engaged as a volunteer on a consultancy or interim basis, people who are contracted to us and under commissioned or procured arrangements as well. And it also includes members of the public. They don't have the same statutory duty to report, but a lot of what we do via the Regional Safeguarding Board particularly is to promote for the public how they can report safeguarding concerns, what to be worried about, and how to do that in a very easy and straightforward manner.
Thank you. Does that content you? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I do think when that's completed, we'd like to see that come forward. That'd be really helpful, actually. Thank you. Councillor Haynes, I've got you next for page 23, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to endorse and agree with Councillor Davis's comments about the overall nature of this report. It is very reassuring to see the extent and depth of our discharge of our duties in terms of safeguarding. My question on page 23 refers to over the last year, in the middle of the page, 40% of allegations were substantiated. This refers to health. So I wonder if you could give us an indication of what happens when allegations are substantiated and what procedures are then followed.
Who'd like to take that?
Hiya, so I'm Charlotte Pickett, I'm the Service Manager for Safeguarding, so I can pick that up. So there's no straightforward answer to that. I suppose it depends on the individual circumstances and what's happened. For it to be substantiated, you could have had an internal investigation in the workplace, or it could have been a police investigation. So, you know, again, if it's a police investigation, it could be that charges are brought against the person, or actually it's deemed that it doesn't meet threshold for criminal proceedings, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't meet a substantiated outcome. It would be based on the information that's presented. With a substantiated outcome, we could make a referral to DBS and share that information. It could be that the person is dismissed from the workplace, but it's difficult really to give a clear answer as to what the specific outcome would be, because the cases that come through vary so significantly. There's a number of needs that come through. It could be that it's a substantiated outcome, but training is provided in the workplace. It could be a referral on to a professional body, NMC referral. It's a huge spectrum of outcomes you could have from that. Are you content with that?
Yes, I am. I anticipated it might be a wide range of responses to what can be very different and very complex issues, but it's just reassuring to know that we have that range of tools to address the issue. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I will come back to Councillor Davis, please, now, because I believe you have a question on page 23 as well, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so to be fair, the team may not know this, but in Appendix 1 on page 23, as Ray said, at the top there you've got a diagram, and it refers to category abuse referrals for 2023, 2024. So obviously something happened in 2023-24 for that number. And like I said, you know, I understand if you don't know the reason for that, that's absolutely fine. But then the next diagram then looks at the following number of strategy meetings. So it's not the lowest number, but it is one of the lowest numbers. So there's a contrast between a relatively high number of referrals for that year, and then a lower number of strategy meetings. I don't expect a comprehensive answer, because it's a difficult one to work out. But have you got any idea as to why that occurred in that particular year?
I can give some context to that. So we changed the way that we were approaching the strategy discussions. So in the past, everything was coming through that process. So all the referrals were coming through. We were seeing high numbers coming through, but they weren't meeting threshold for professional concerns. So we looked at the process and considering what met threshold and what didn't. So in the past, there was meetings taking place where threshold wasn't met.
Can I interrupt 1 second? I'm really sorry. I'm getting messages from the back that they can't hear you properly because of the microphone, and I think we've got a problem with the microphones today because I'm struggling to hear. Is there any chance that you can lean forward just closer to the microphone, please? Sorry, Charlotte.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's not your
repeat
fault.
That?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
No, that's fine. So we reviewed the process whereby we were considering what met threshold and what needs to be considered in the strategy meeting. So that's why you'll see lower numbers because previously everything, or not everything, but higher numbers were coming through and then threshold wasn't met to proceed through the process. So we reviewed that. So that's why you'll see a lower level of numbers.
Content, yeah. And just on the figures as well, we can see that there is a trend where the figures sort of go up and they're coming back down again. Pardon me, coming back down. Are we anticipating that this trend is going to continue on the downward trend there?
I would hope we see it remaining more consistent now because we're having more of a consistent approach to it. We're always going to have those referrals. So it is about education in the workplace, but hopefully now we'll see more stagnant numbers.
Thank you. And just a little bit of housekeeping because I have eyesight issues and I know members of the public might as well. Just to let you know, those figures are really, really faint underneath. So I don't know if we can produce them in a little bit darker colour because I really struggled with that. I couldn't see what they were, so sorry about that. Right, thank you for that. All content there, members? I think we are. Lovely. Right, I shall move us along to page 25 and Councillor James to start with HMP Park, and you might have 1 or 2 questions here.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the issue of park prisoners, a lot of people don't know how many prisoners are there. I can tell you there's 1,800 prisoners there. If you ask members of the public how many prisoners are there, they'll probably tell you about 300 or 400. And in the report, all right, the health and safety staff, our staff are doing a good job there by the decrease in the suicides. There hasn't been a suicide there for 2 years. But some of the problems they're having, I don't know whether we can do anything about it, is the DBS checks. They have to wait 3 months to have a check done. That means you would put in, the inmates are at risk there because they can't get the staff in. They've got a turnover in staff. The other problems they got is the bad publicity they get. All right, because somebody dies there. All right, they've been there 10 or 20 years. They're in their 80s, sad. But, why all this bad publicity they get in? And the main problem they've got is the spice. Drones are coming in there quite frequently, and it's a hard thing to stop. But they had to change all the windows, all the back windows now to stop these drones. And the other thing I'd like to see is we can do some visits there as councillors. I don't know whether it's a rota visits or, as some of the council just said, get somebody to speak at our meeting, somebody from the prison. But I would like us to visit that prison. We know what's going on and we can see for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Who would like to take that?
So just a couple of things, Councillor James, thank you very much for your contribution. Councillor Williams, Amanda Williams and I were at the prison not long ago. She is invited as a local ward member and I'm invited as the cabinet member. We have very robust discussions. Indeed, we altered their case, submit a business case for the extension because we were really concerned around some of the concerns that you're raising, quite rightly so. Just when you're talking about the windows wasn't to be done across the whole prison site. They are now. That's been extended. They are doing the utmost that they can in there. And yes, our suicide rates have gone down. And yes, there were issues with spice. There are not so many anymore. I don't think that's reassuring at all as yet. We're not responsible for all of it. And we have to be really careful because HMP Park is a private company and they're employed by HMPPS, it's called. So We need to be careful because that's a UK body and not a Welsh Government body, so we are careful. They do invite regularly all elected representatives from across the board, UK MPs and MSs, all go in there and they are all challenging some of the work that they're doing. I have another issue in so much as the housing requirements as well, and then the supportive requirements for prisoners being released, whether that's on bail, remand, or just finish their sentence. We haven't got enough properties to support them. We certainly don't have those supportive services. And as a council, there's an expectation on us that we're going to just provide them. The RSG currently to local authorities in Wales, every local authority, whether they have any secure provision or not, are included in that consequential, which I don't think has any fairness around it. There is no parity in that requirement if we are expected to pick up all those prisoners. And when you look at the planning application that's currently in, that will make it the largest prison in Wales. So we need to consider how we're delivering services going forward. We are on top of the situation, Councillor James. We have made the request that other members go in, but they are very restrictive about who is allowed on a secure estate. There's all sorts of requirements that we have to go through before we're even allowed to attend. So just for reassurance, I will endeavour to ask that members get to see, but so far the request has been denied and they've been really restricted on us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. On the ball as normal.
Exactly, exactly. Does that answer your concerns though, Councillor James?
It does actually, and as I just said, Councillor Gabby, fair play. She's always on the ball and always got a good answer. Thank you, Jane.
Diane Bendigedig. Yep, absolutely. It's interesting to hear that both yourself and the local member have been in. I wasn't aware of that, but that's really good news because, we do hold concerns about this. And I know exactly what you're saying about the difficulties because it is private. It's a private company. However, we do have that duty of care. So are we content that...
We are more content now that they are engaging with our safeguarding board because originally they wouldn't have been.
Yes.
I have made a contact there from HMPPS. We do have regular discussions, which is how we're able to inform their business case application, etc.
Right.
They're trying to operate. I want to say they're trying to operate their safeguarding arrangements as an English model, and what they've had to learn is actually that won't hold any water here in Wales. We do have different arrangements, and they need to engage and comply with those arrangements.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to hear. And yeah, I was going to say, do you want to come in on this, Charlotte? Can I just say as well? Well done so far because you haven't strayed into there, but I'm just going to urge caution with DCC and the planning coming up. We absolutely don't want to go into discussions about the planning and the changes and business arrangements there. So just, I know you haven't so far, it's just urging caution more to my members as well. So thank you. Yes. Charlotte.
Thank you. So, so the secure estate falls within my remit as well. So I'm very much present up in the prison. We have worked extremely hard to develop those relationships with the prison, and they're very positive. They keep me updated with, all sorts of things, and the safeguarding referrals are coming through far more appropriately. They will send consultations on a regular basis. We have the working group which monitors progress within the safeguarding lens, and things are really positive up there. Staff don't just go in with the DBS check, they also have to go through the G4S checks. So there's that double layer of safety there for the staff that are going in. We work very closely with the prison with all the professional concerns. We have regular conversations about any concerns with staff members there. With the drones, just to give some context, the drones are very sophisticated, so they can fly drones in from 5 miles away. They're using army quality drones to be able to do that. But the prison have done a lot of work in intercepting those drones. They do continue to intercept packages that are dropped within the prison walls. So they're doing a lot of work in that area as well.
Okay, lovely. And you're content that they're on top of that issue? Because it is a major issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, right. Thank you. Councillor Bledsoe, Stephen Bledsoe, please.
Thank you, Chair. And just going back to Councillor James's original point, and whilst taking on board that Councillor Gebby and Councillor Amanda Williams have been in, and I think if it's 51 councillors, we chose our top 5, I think both of those councillors would be in the top 5 of robust ones that we'd send in to ask questions. But I would like to almost reinforce what Councillor James said. We are here to scrutinise this. This is our role within this process, is to scrutinise it, and that kind of interaction and visibility will help us to scrutinise it better. Now, whilst ever we can say that Councillor Gebby and Councillor Amanda Williams may be the 2 best people, sometimes sending people in to ask a question that hasn't come to the mind of those 2 councillors may be worthwhile. It may help a little bit. We all have different angles of looking at things, and certainly from a business point of view, you know, in my outside life, we welcome people who don't have the necessary experience to ask the question that sometimes doesn't appear to us as people who look at it so robustly. So I would like to reinforce Councillor James's request that request still goes forward, that we still ask that members, not all of the committee perhaps, but a selection of the committee, just go in and ask questions that may not appear to those that go in already.
Thank you. I'm going to bring Deputy Leader in, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question. I don't disagree with your scrutiny overview. What I would say is, just like we have to be careful around planning, we have to be careful around the scrutiny of HMP Park, because it doesn't fall under our remit. Only the safeguarding arrangements and the delivery of any social care element fall under our arrangements. So I have to be very careful. I agree that the drug use, misuse, I should say, or use, whichever way you want to put it, and the drones are a safeguarding issue, which is the only reason that we're able to ask questions around those arrangements. They are getting more transparent with their contributions to us when they do give me a briefing, so I am more content in that regard, because originally it was very much put you off, we're nothing to do with you, you can't come in here, we're not having you. So I am pleased that we're making strides, as they say, and it's those relationships that are the most important, because we need to safeguard the prisoners there. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Dave, can I bring you in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. David Wright, Deputy Head of Children and Family Services. Just to provide reassurance to Scrutiny and Committee that in terms of our relationship from a children and families perspective with the Young Offenders Institute, we have similar arrangements as Charlotte described from an adults. So lots of interface with Rihanna Granger, our Group Manager of IA and Safeguarding, lots of interface arrangements with our Local Authority Designated Officer, Pam Smith. So lots of discussions around any professional concerns, issues or safeguarding issues are also kind of supported by ourselves from a children and families perspective.
Thank you. Content with that, Councillor Bledsoe?
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, lovely. Gary, did you want to come in with a question? Yeah, okay. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, having read this section, it's clear that the work of the team in Park has been highly successful. The lack of suicides in the last 2 years. However, I get the impression, without being able to substantiate it, that the significant attempts at suicide and self-harm are still high. We may be very successful in preventing them proceeding to actual suicide. That to me would seem to indicate that the underlying causes, what is driving these young prisoners to commit self-harm or attempt suicide, remain in place. And I wondered what routes and what paths the team have to make that point to the authorities, to the company running the prison, and what chances there are to ensure that the underlying causes are being addressed significantly.
Hiya. So we don't have any comparative data as to what those significant attempts looked like prior to our group. So now we have this forum, we are able to track that data and keep an eye on those numbers. So whilst we look at those numbers and could say that they're high, actually we've got no data to compare it to from prior to our group. So we'll be looking at that going forward. what the group does, and when we hold a meeting for an individual, allows us to put a bespoke plan into place for that prisoner. We have had some that repeat people coming through, but I think we also need to consider that there is nearly 2,000 men in this prison who have got significant mental health, substance misuse, have had traumatic childhoods, so they are going to have significant needs in that forum. And actually, we look on this meeting as a positive response to their needs by allowing us to put those plans in place around them.
Are you content with that?
Yes, partially. I think it's important, isn't it? We do this work in the prison. We deal on an individual basis, but there are underlying reasons for these attempts. And I just wondered about the validity and the impact of the feedback from our teams to the people running the prison, if it has any impact at all in how they run the prison, because obviously that's really important in making sure that safeguarding of prisoners is an improving situation and not either a stagnant or an increasing one. So if you are content, I guess I'm content. Yeah, that's it.
Ish, but yes, I know where you're coming from. Yes, ish. Yes, it does. Did you want to add anything further, Charlotte?
Yes, so we have looked at trends. So from all the referrals coming through, we looked at trends and we were able to identify a specific wing there was a trend. So we were able to do some targeted work on that wing. It also opened up conversations about how information is shared between the young offenders aspect and the adult wing where prisoners are transferring over. So we have been able to do some work around that as well and making sure information is shared.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just a quick question, Councillor Gabby. When you do these visits, who do you get to speak to? Do you get to speak to the officers on the ground, the prison officers themselves? Thank you, Chair.
I get to speak to the officers. I get to speak to the inmates. We're taken on the wings, as they say. I think what I was most surprised about when I visited the latest visit I did was on the wing, and it looked like a hospital ward. I don't know any other way to describe it. Now, that's down to our officers in there. There's an awful lot of dementia in there as well, so we know that there's cognitive impairments. And actually, there's significant issues for some of the inmates, so our staff are amazing. I can't fault them, and it's like they all know who they're working with. That was really interesting to see the relationships that the staff had built up with the inmates. So when we look at the reduction of suicide, self-harm, actually there's a reason for that, and it's down to relationships of our staff and workforce there.
Good. Undervalued, aren't they?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Chair.
No, you're welcome. Whilst we're talking about who we're talking to and narratives, because obviously we talk about the voice of the individual and how we're hearing that and how we react to that and how we work with that. One of the questions that I did want to ask was, we're talking now to HMP as an entity, and that relationship's building, and it's really heartening to hear that that's building, because I think that's really important. We've obviously listened to the voice of the prisoners themselves. Do we have any sort of narrative feedback from families? Because I do know that they are quite vocal, the families. They have been quite vocal, and I don't know if we have that narrative with them, if we have that mechanism, if we are talking to them in any way at all.
We do at times. Sometimes you don't have consent to speak to families, so that's about the individual prisoners' views and wishes, if they want that to happen. Sometimes they don't have any family for us to speak to. But just to give an example, we had a gent who was end of life. Parole board refused his release on compassionate grounds, and he passed away in hospital, but the staff facilitated family visiting on a higher level than what they were, for them to be able to go into the wing to spend time with him in his bedside prior to him passing. He was an elderly gentleman with significant health needs. So, we try to involve the family as much as we possibly can. Sometimes we can't, but we'll do everything that we can.
So that's sort of telling us about how we interact with them, and obviously GDPR and all of this comes into play there, and you know whether the prisoner wants that. But is there that mechanism if the family wishes to raise a concern with us? Because obviously some of these issues are quite serious with spice and drugs and suicide, etc. Do they have that mechanism?
Yeah,
that
so
they
they've
can
got a
come to
phone
us?
line in the prison to raise any welfare concerns, and they can do that as often as they like.
Sorry, they've got a...
There's a phone line in the prison to raise welfare concerns. The family can ring this specific line and raise any welfare concerns, and then they'll go and check on the prisoner.
So that goes to the prison, but what about us as BCBC? Is there any
They can raise
mechanism?
safeguarding concerns as per any other individual.
Right, so through the normal channels, through the front door? Yeah, okay, thank you. Cheers. Okay, sorry, just having a little conflab. Just finally as well, I believe, I have one quick question. So we have discussed the plans that are coming up with the extension, and I really don't want to stray into that at all, the details, because I don't want to jeopardise anything. But I did just wonder if we were statutory consultees as Social Services Department in terms of that planning. Do you want to be as well, is the other question, I suppose?
No, but we could respond if we were minded, as anybody else can, to a planning consultation.
Okay, thank you. Right. Thank you very much. Members, any other questions before I move on? Councillor Bledsoe?
Sorry, should have cleared my throat first. I wasn't going to ask, but just something that Claire said then. Can we find out if the timelines allow us to be a consultee? I'm mindful that the application is progressing forward. So when Claire said we could, if we were so minded, I just want to double check whether the timelines on whether we can are in place. And if we can, then perhaps we should consider that we should. But it's process, isn't it? We have to comply with timelines on planning applications.
Yeah, no, we can check that. That's not a problem at all, and it's a fair comment, because I believe it's 28 days. Is it 28 days? Do you know?
Sorry, Chair. I think it might be longer, just because of the size. The other thing I would say is we're not going to get to be statutory consultees at this time, but like anybody, we can submit a consultation response, which is slightly different.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, so moving on, Councillor Davis, page 26. I have a question from you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As you said, page 26 of the pack, Children and Family Services. Another strange dated issue there. 24% increase over the last 12 months of the report timetable. It talks about the signs of safety screening tool, which is the way the department says it's managing this issue. So I wonder again if one of the team could just explain a little bit more in depth about the signs of safety screening tool, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I'm Rena Granger, Group Manager, Safeguarding. I can answer that. So this has been a very long process, over 2 years, at strengthening our processes in the front door and taking a more proportionate approach to referrals. So the screening tool and the use of signs of safety really supports practitioners to be able to hone in on what our concerns are, what the risks are and what the worries are. And then the ethos of signs of safety is to support families to find their own solutions. So we have seen a decrease in the need for strategy meetings because we spend more time unpicking referrals at that initial stage. It's really supported us to sort of reduce some of those numbers. We're working more with families on a care and support basis, so families tell us that is better for them. Obviously, when there's a referral that you know is very clear and needs to be a strategy meeting and a child protection investigation, then we are clear on that. But that signs of safety approach has really supported us to, yes, be more proportionate, slow down our thinking at the front door, and look at how best we can support families in the right time. So it's had a huge impact on us across children's services, that signs of safety approach.
Thank you. Content? Yeah, lovely. I've got you on page 27 as well, Councillor Davis, so I don't know if you want to come in with that question.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, another crazy stat on page 27, the diagram at the bottom. It looks like, again, 2023. As I said earlier on, does anybody know what happened in that year? Was there something, a factor which caused all these stats to rise? I'd be interested if you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so we have known for a long time that our levels of children subject to the Child Protection Register have been disproportionately high when we compare ourselves to other local authorities of a similar size and demographic. We've undertaken targeted work alongside the introduction of our practice model to look at removing children from the Child Protection Register where there hasn't been that progress, so targeted intervention for families, but also, as I've said, looking at strengthening our processes in the front door, working with families in a different way is preventing children from escalating to the Child Protection Register. So this has been 2+ years of targeted work, and now I'm pleased to say we are comparable now to other local authorities of that similar size. I totally appreciate that it is it's quite surprising when you look at the graphs. And we've done lots of sense checking, quality assurance work along the way to look at our decision making, to make sure that it's sound, robust and safe for children. And we've made changes where necessary, and we've responded to our change in data. But to add reassurance, our QA work around this has demonstrated and evidenced safe decision making.
Excellent, thank you. Oh yes, sorry, David.
Sorry, Chair, just to come back in as well, just to add that obviously 2023, 2022, 2023 coincides with the challenges that we had around workforce and some of the difficulties we had then in recruiting staff and retaining staff to work through some of those cases, in particular around children and families. But as Ray's described, with a permanent workforce, our ability to implement signs of safety and have confidence in our decision making has led to those reductions that you can then subsequently see.
Has it had anything to do with the CIW investigations as well, or?
Yeah, so that would coincide with the level of scrutiny we were having from CIW and some of the concerns they were raising around our practice. Obviously coincides with the tragic murder obviously of Logan. Yeah, so obviously that demand that was increased then into social services at that point, leading to increases in child protection registration, and then the difficulties around the workforce obviously aligns to that kind of data.
Thank you for that. All content? Yeah. Lovely, thank you. Page 33 next then, please, and Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Page 33, which is the Education, Early Years and Youth Service section. At the bottom of the page, it references a non-recurring £1 million budget to support schools in reducing permanent exclusions. Obviously, this has an impact on safeguarding. And it makes the point that a proposal has been developed in partnership with schools and is due to be approved in November this year. So I wondered if it was possible, if officers could share any highlights of this proposal with the committee at this point in time.
I believe we've got Mark Lewis, haven't we? Yeah. Mark?
I can say yes. For the notes, I'm Mark Lewis. I'm the Group Manager for Early Years Young People, and within that portfolio sits responsibility for school exclusions and managed moves. Short answer is you can share some highlights. We actually had a meeting with the head teacher at my Stig school earlier this week, and we've taken the proposal through a variety of consultations. I guess as for highlights, so the position is Not dissimilar, just give you a bit of context, and some of that is in the report. So 34, actually it was 33 in the end, because one was overturned on appeal, permanent exclusions. That's the biggest challenge for us last school year. The £1 million, it's one-off funding. It sounds significant, and we are grateful, but it's challenging, because it's really trying to get a balance of the sort of here and now, because there are real challenges in schools around behaviour, and in turn then that is triggering a significant number of permanent exclusions. We have met with colleagues in Eston as well. There are similar positions. This isn't unique. I probably should have indicated at the outset to Bridgend. But as for the specifics of your question, the proposals are looking at an alternative sort of provision lead coming back in. So the term you might have heard before, EOTIS, educated other than at school, because a number of these permanent exclusions, I think we could, if we looked at alternative provision, would benefit potentially earlier and avoid a permanent exclusion. A number of these pupils, given the conversation we're having, are open to statutory services, including children and families. So we are liaising with colleagues within children and families in terms of the proposal. One of the emphasis, really, because it is one-off monies, is around some trauma practice, trauma training, really, for schools, because a number of the children, unsurprisingly, or pupils in this context, would have had childhood trauma. We're also looking at, I'm just giving you sort of snapshots now, at a sort of a rapid response type team who are appropriately qualified to go in when some instances are developing in schools. That, I accept, is more reactive. Ultimately, we're looking to get to that preventative end. So we look at that sort of concept around team around the child, team around the school. So yeah, the proposal, in summary, there are a number of posts, but it'll be underpinned by trauma practice, trauma training for schools, maybe to get a better understanding of some of those presenting needs, and then points of escalation for support to avoid the number of permanent exclusions that we saw in the last school year. I think the reality is, given we're now 6th of November, we're not going to see, we're going to need to get boots on the ground, as it were. We're going to need to recruit. So we're not going to see the impact of those monies probably until next school year, because it's probably going to be closer to Easter. Some of these are very specialist posts, so there'll be a recruitment process once that proposal is signed off by Cabinet later this month. Does that help?
Content.
Yes, thank you. It's good to know that you have what sounds like a comprehensive plan, and I wish you well in its execution. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because when you look at that initially, I mean, £1 million, we're often told that when we're budgeting 1 million, that's 1% of the council tax rise, etc., roughly. So to hear that there's such a strong and sufficient plan there, because we're sort of straying into education here as well, which isn't our remit, but so it's, yeah, and I do know that the education committee has scrutinised this quite some as well. So, but it's good to hear that that plan is in place. It sounds robust, and actually we're talking about early intervention here, which is something that we do talk about a lot here. So that's really good. So thank you very much, Mark. I applaud you for that. Thank you. Right. Just before we move on as well from this section.
Chair, can I come in on?
Yes, of course you can. Yes, yes.
Can I just have some clarification? Which financial year is the £1 million for?
Who would like
the £1 million is from, I don't know if I can come in, I guess I'm not a finance officer, so shoot me down, but this is out of a reserve, so it's to be spent over the next 2 years, really. We aren't time limited in terms of, we could stretch it potentially over 3 years, but I think our plan, the proposal that I've just articulated, would be over 2 years, really, to see that effect. So it's money that's been identified by Cabinet out of year mark might be the right term, and again, finance colleagues, please correct me if I'm not using the right financial terminology, but it isn't one-off. It's one-off monies, but it isn't just for one financial year, if that helps.
Do you want to come back in? Yeah.
When did the money become available? April the 1st this year?
The money became available, as I understand. Again, I'll defer to finance colleagues, 1st of April, but obviously we've gone through, it would have been remiss of us to just use that money. It's a significant pot of money, notwithstanding the context the chair has just given in terms of the 1%. But we've gone through, quite a significant process of consulting with other local authorities. Maybe you've been successful in reducing permanent exclusions, head teacher colleagues and others. So to answer your question, yes, the money became available 1st of April, but between then and now, as it were, we've been developing that proposal. So yeah, 1st of April, but it doesn't have to be spent by the 31st of March, if that helps.
I think the point I'm trying to make is that the money's been available since the 1st of April, and we haven't really seen much progress. So I'd recommend the Education Scrutiny team look at asking for an early report about what the proposal is, because it says in the report it's a one-off for this financial year. You're now saying we can extend it over 2 years. Can we please have some clarity and transparency over this issue? Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I can come back, there is clarity and transparency. We've taken it to the Scrutiny Committee around education, early years and young people, and it's very clear that we weren't going to jump into this on the 1st of April. We needed to develop a robust proposal that was going to have impact. Nobody more than me wants to see permanent exclusions reduced in schools, because that doesn't have good outcomes for children. We know that, but it would have been foolish, in my view, for us to jump in with something from the 1st of April. We needed to develop that in the way I've just described. But just to reassure colleagues that and committee, it has, as you've indicated, Chair, been to the Education Scrutiny for discussion as well.
Thank you. Just very quickly then, obviously you're saying you didn't want to jump in on the 1st of April, you wanted to put the plan in place, etc. Do you not plan ahead for this though? Because the budget was coming in on the 1st of April. You obviously would have planned ahead for this, yes?
Yeah, we only had, to my knowledge, and again, finance colleagues would need to come in, we only had confirmation of the monies on or around around that date. So there's been quite a significant process between now and then in terms of developing it. So, I wasn't probably the corporate director isn't on the call really, but there probably needs to be wider conversations in terms of corporate management board. But certainly as a group manager, as soon as I was advised of that pot of monies being available, I've developed a proposal in line with other colleagues, group managers around inclusion, etc., etc. So yeah, we haven't been sitting on our hands, as it were. It's as soon as I was advised, then we've followed due process really in terms of developing what we think is a proposal that is going to have impact.
And absolutely, it's not a criticism of you or the staff, not at all. It's really not. It's just that we need to scrutinise and see if there's any way that we can make this easier for you guys as well. That's the other
Absolutely.
thing. So, Councillor Bledsoe, please.
That last statement by the officer kind of sounds like a recommendation we should be putting forward as a committee to get better, doesn't it? We should be having better communications. We shouldn't be having that late notice on something that's so important. And if we're always looking to improve, that sounds like a recommendation we should be taking forward.
Agreed. Councillor Easterbrook?
Yeah, just wondering if I can have sort of some clarity around the money is obviously there. It says to support schools in reducing permanent exclusion. I don't want to go into the education sort of side of it. Is it really quiet? Okay, sorry. I'm not a governor of schools, and my own experience of schools is 40, 50 years ago. I've had children who have gone through schools. They haven't been excluded. I don't think I really understand the permanent exclusion, because the whole point is that we keep children in schools. Reading the report, it talks about a managed move. So are we moving that pupil from one school, and therefore is the pupil the problem, or they have problems, or is it the school that has the problem? And I think that anything needs money, but I'm just wondering, how are we supporting the schools with this money to actually manage the problem at its core root. Because just to keep moving people isn't answering the problem. Thank you, Chair.
Mark, can you come back in on that, please?
Yeah, happy to come in on that. So they're two very different things. So permanent exclusions, there's National Welsh Government statutory guidance around permanent exclusions. That autonomy is with head teachers. If they feel that the incident or accumulation of fixed term exclusions warrants a permanent exclusion, that's a decision with head teacher colleagues. They do move, just to reassure colleagues in committee, the vast majority of permanent exclusions, if you look at the permanent exclusions last school year, so I've indicated there were 33 in number, the vast majority of those, and don't quote me, but I think at least 30 of those moved to another mainstream school, with wraparound support. So they are moving, and that gives a message, doesn't it, to another mainstream school, and are settling in that provision. A managed move is very different. There's very different guidance around that, and that's between ones. So we have a new managed moves policy in Bridgend, or protocol, for want of a better term, and we are working every fortnight, every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. I meet with head teacher colleagues or their representatives, and we consider, together with colleagues, pupils who would benefit from a fresh start for a variety of reasons. So I just wanted to stress there are two different outcomes. The permanent exclusions, that decision is with head teacher colleagues as per the national statutory guidance, and we as a local authority then will work with schools to either look at parental choice comes into this, but another suitable school, whether that be mainstream. In some cases they're going through what we call a graduated response, and they might need more of a specialist provision in terms of education. But yeah, just to reiterate, this is very much in partnership with schools, and schools are very much on board with the proposals we put forward.
Thank you. Content?
Yeah, thank you.
David?
Thanks. Sorry, thanks, Chair. Just to kind of reiterate some of the points Mark's making, I guess the permanent exclusion is generally an action in response to a symptom that's being presented within the school environment, but there are probably other indicators elsewhere to suggest there are challenges for that child and that family. And I think the key point for me is around how do we join this up across services to maximise the resources that we've got, because ultimately the pressures that schools are seeing are being seen within local communities. We're seeing it obviously in terms of the demand that's coming into statutory services around children and families. So committee will be cited on the Family Support Commissioning strategy that's been developed within social services and wellbeing, where Mark is part of that board, with other agencies that are part of that board, to look at how do we respond to these challenges that we're seeing across the county as a group, rather than it being this is a school issue in isolation and therefore the school need to deal with it. So hopefully it provides some reassurance to committee that we're looking at this as a partnership to maximise the resource that we've got and ultimately develop better responses within local communities would be my preference and suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. And also as well, that sort of feeds into the question that I had, which is on page 33. We can see on the table there that we've got, so we've got the primary school figures there, and it goes 1, 0, 1, 7, 6, and back down to 0, which obviously is great that it's back down to 0. However, is it because of some work that we're doing? I mean, obviously it's quite alarming when you look at those figures that they've shot up like that in primary school as well. That's, obviously quite alarming, but it's good that we appear to have got on top of it. Is it because of the multi-agency working that we do? Is that something that's having a positive? Sorry, I was looking for Mark then. He's not sat here. Is it having a positive effect? Is that something that's indicative there, please? Do you want to come in, Mark?
Yeah, sorry, I can do it. So it broke up a little. That's why I turned my camera off to see if it was going to help the bandwidth. But yes, I think there's lots of work we do with primary schools. There was the spike that you've identified. I think part of the challenge is lots of the money, if I can use that term, in the system, particularly that comes from Welsh Government. It's certainly within my portfolio. So it's not an acronym I like, but NEETs, or potential needs, so those young people not in education, employment, or training, it tends to be at that sort of key stage 4. You know, that sort of your 10, 11, and in many ways we want to try and get those youth workers, because that's what they are, we call them lead workers, really managing that transition. Because when we look at some of the points where we do, and I will come back to your specific point, you know, we see spikes within year 7 and year 9 we have in terms of some of the permanent exclusions I was referring to, but there are good early support, early help type arrangements that are available to primary schools. But I think the biggest challenge really, in some of the figures and the evidence supports that, is really those flashpoints, if I can use that term for want of a better, or those spikes. The data supports quite a lot of permanent exclusions maybe in year 7. So there's more work I think we need to do multi-agency around that transition, and around maybe understanding some of those presenting needs, because clearly a primary school is, you know, a much smaller environment by definition, isn't it? And maybe more nurturing when they go to what we would call the sort of secondary big school, as it were. Then there are different dynamics and challenges for some of the young people then, who are having to attend sort of multiple lessons, multiple teachers, etc. So there's more we need to do around transition. But to answer your question head on, Chair, yes, I think we do have good arrangements within primary, but I would suggest that part of the challenge is we need to try in the future with Welsh Government to channel support and funding more so to primary, particularly to manage that transition, because that would that's certainly, in my view, an area that needs investment.
Thank you. Is that a legacy hand of yours? No. Okay. Right. Thank you. No, thank you very much for that. Any other questions from members on this particular one? No. Can't see any hands going up, so that's all good. Just to very quickly ask then, because obviously as a committee we have to make recommendations, is there any recommendations on this matter that would be helpful to yourself, Mark, and your team, that we could make back perhaps to the Education Committee, if there's anything that you think there? And also as well, I just wanted to ask, whilst we've got officers and Deputy Leader here who's been involved with this, should we be looking at putting Park Prison on the forward work plan, do you think? Is there any merit in doing so from your point of view?
From my point of view, no, not really, because we can't scrutinise them other than the safeguarding and the social care arrangements, which you already do under reports that were coming here. As you've seen in the safeguarding report today, we've actually put in a special piece about Park Prison. It's the same for our adult social care reports and stuff. We always include them as part of our arrangements.
Because you're quite right that we can't scrutinise the entire gamut. That's not what we're here for. But the sections that we can, we're not hearing the voice from them directly in this committee as attendees. So you don't think there would be any merit in that? No.
Sorry, Chair, you wouldn't be able to hear from them anyway. Under their constitution, they don't come before scrutiny, and we certainly wouldn't have prisoners here.
I'm not suggesting we have prisoners. I'm suggesting, you know, we have management of the prison. No. Certainly not prisoners.
We don't have that. We don't have that ability to summons them. Essentially, as you will note from the beginning of your paperwork at the beginning, I get a summons to attend before your committee, Chair.
Yes.
You can't summon anybody from Park to attend here.
I'm just going to bring Councillor Davis in.
We can ask, though.
You can ask, and I believe at one point they were asked to attend full council, as we have the presentation at full council, but they had to go via then their home office routes to ask that, and it was a no. You know, within your remit, obviously you scrutinise how we safeguard, because we're the safeguarding authority, and you scrutinise us from an adult social care perspective in terms of the services that we provide within the prison. But you know, you'd have to go via those routes to ask, and it wouldn't be within just the gift of the director within the prison. He'd have to go via his hierarchy.
Understand that, and actually, Councillor Bledsoe, I'll bring you in first.
Yeah, no, and look, this is all new to a lot of us. From where I see it, we are responsible for the safeguarding of the people who are in Park Prison. It's heartbreaking every time we see on the national news about deaths in that place. So there is something there happening within our boundaries that we are responsible for. And whilst we don't delve into the planning application, it is likely that the demand for more safeguarding services is going to be higher because there will be more people in an already large prison. And as the Deputy Leader has already said, the largest prison in Wales, which has a bad national press image on our patch already, it could get higher. So perhaps there's something on our forward work programme. Are we ready for the additional work that we're going to have to provide? Picking up on something else, the Deputy Leader said our responsibility for housing when they are released is going to increase. So I feel there is something there that we can put on our forward work programme for what we are charged with. Are we ready for the additional hit that we're going to have to take on what we have to provide? Are we ready for the housing that we're going to have to provide? Are we ready for that? Because if we don't, and if the planning application is successful, are we prepared for the additional pressures we will have as a local authority? Because that's money, that's pressures, that's financial, that's residents paying, that's all of those that we have to be prepared for. And I feel the only way to do that is a forward work programme where we look at it before it happens.
Quite happy to bring it here, more than happy to. It's care and support services. I think the thing I would say is I need to be very careful about what I'm doing as well and the demands that I'm making. I already referenced as part of the planning application, I sat down with HMPPS, and as part of their business case, we've actually included the care and support element for Bridgend. But that's only after an awful lot of representation and negotiation, because that isn't part of their business plan as a norm. But they have submitted it this time around, which I'm really pleased with, because the Home Office had to sign off on that business case even before it was submitted. So we are making those representations. I think we are seeing some benefits, and I suspect we will see additional benefits, because as part of that business case, it's the additional revenue cost for care and support for the prisoners there.
Yeah, thank you. I don't disagree. Right. Okay. Noted. Noted. Thank you. Right. With that, I will ask our councillors if we have anything on children and family services. And when I say, do we have anything, obviously we have discussed this quite a lot in other areas. So just to check in the safeguarding report. Moving on then, if we don't, to page 34, and Councillor James, I believe you have a question there, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Page 34, last paragraph, all right, is for the electively registered home educated children, where they get and the coordinators do an annual review. But the last sentence is, nevertheless, many families opt for online engagement only. So do we ever get to meet the children? Thank you, Chair. Did they ever get to meet the children? I'll rephrase that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, I was looking, and do you know what? It's really confusing me that you're online. I'm looking for you in the chamber here. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm back to back with different meetings today. But yeah, to answer your question again, there are parameters within the national guidance, so that there are some challenges around elective home education. Are young people or children sighted? Not in all cases. There will be dialogue. There isn't a statutory requirement for that. So in the vast majority, there would be an interaction, a sighting of that child and young person. Clearly, we're not looking at it through a safeguarding lens, but if you defer to the national guidance, there isn't always that requirement. What the home educated, in many cases the parent, needs to do is satisfy us, the local authority, that there's suitable education within that home provision. Lots of those learners will receive online learning, in essence, but the requirements are not Bridgend requirements. They're set out within the national guidance. But again, just to reassure, if there are concerns of a safeguarding nature, then there's systems and processes that can be followed to put the necessary referrals in.
Or content?
Yep.
Chair, I don't disagree with the comments that have been made already. And as the Association of Director of Social Services has already picked up on the fact that we don't see these children often enough, and we don't think it's appropriate. Now, I'm going to ask Mark for his guidance, but I do think as an authority, we can put different guidance in if we wanted different guidance. And what is our policy, and is there any way that we can amend, please?
Mark?
I think, Deputy Leader, my immediate response, I think there would be challenge from some of that. So it's national guidance. So I think, we would need to take some legal advice as to whether we could work outside of that. I share some of your concerns, that, Deputy Leader, in terms of, what is national guidance. But I think there could be some challenge and some kickback from some of that cohort of maybe parents who feel that some of the scrutiny is unwarranted. So yes, we can explore. I've got my own views. Probably not appropriate to share those within a public domain, but there are some limitations to that national guidance, which create some challenges. Would be happy to explore whether we can bridgendize, for want of a better term, some of that national, which is law. It's not, but I think there may be some challenge. So, Deputy Leader, I think we would need to take some legal advice on that. Would be my fallback position.
Can I ask you to take that legal advice then, Mark?
Yeah, happy to.
You beat me to it.
Happy to. If I'm honest, we have. If I'm honest, we have in the past, and the answer is we have to defer to the national position. So yeah, I'm not. I was trying to be diplomatic for once, and those of you who know me, I'm not diplomatic, sadly. Yeah, we have and we can't, but I'm happy to revisit it, Deputy Leader.
You're all right, Mark. Welcome to the non-diplomatic club.
Yes, I'm certainly probably be head of that for you.
Yeah. Claire, can I bring you in, please?
Yeah, I need to declare a personal interest because I'm the current chair of the director, what's it, ADSS, Association of the Directors of Social Services Cymru. I can't remember what it is, but I am chair of it. And what the Deputy Leader was referring to is that we've set out 6 priorities for parties to consider in terms of Senedd elections, which are upcoming, and one of those is the national mandated register for children who are educated other than in school settings, and that's something that has been pressed for by education colleagues as well as social care colleagues for a number of years. So just to say that that's something that we're pressing for from an ADSS Cymru perspective.
Thank you. That's it really is interesting, isn't it? Let's be honest. And I hear what you're saying about the pushback, but I also think it's really important to remember that we have to look at it in a safeguarding context as well. And if we haven't got eyes on those children, as we didn't in COVID as well, when they were away from oversight, that then might well become a safeguarding issue, and we need to look at that as well. And I do understand about the legislation issues, the national legislation, but I do wonder if we shouldn't be pushing for a localised view on this, because I think there is that concern about oversight there here enough. Councillor Gebby?
Can I make a recommendation to the committee chair that you approach the education scrutiny and ask them for a steer, I want to say, and or possibly some scrutiny of that arrangement. Mark, I appreciate I'm giving you additional work. However, I think it's really important. I agree with you. I think we should be seeing these children at least once a term, because things can go downhill really, really quickly in family arrangements. And if there is nobody there and they don't see anything, then we are none the wiser.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're singing from the same hymn sheet, because it's on my list here, sent to Education Committee for deeper dive. That's what I've got down as my notes. So yes, it's going. Right. Thank you very much. Right, moving us on, if we've got no more questions on home education. Again, I don't want it to seem like we haven't got questions. We've rehearsed quite a lot of these questions throughout previous reports that have come to us. So that is the case, rather than we don't have questions. So, we can see that the work is being done. We know that the work is being done. We are content with the work that's being done. So please don't take it that we don't have questions. That's the position instead. Any other items down to page 42, please, members? Any other questions? I don't think we do. In that case, then I will take us to the other areas of key focus. Gary, I think you might have had a question on this, page 42 to 44.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The question I have really is on page 43. It's to move from the current WCCIS system to the new Mosaic system. I know that we've looked at this before in other arenas, and I know that it's high on the corporate risk register, etc. But the potential impact of this falling down on the Directorate's ability to function, and especially with regards to the issue of safety. So my question is, are there any updates on progress? And is the Directorate content so far that the risks, which we've already identified as being high, are being addressed correctly?
In terms of update on progress, we're working locally, regionally and nationally to implement the new system which has been procured. The new system is called Mosaic. It's a system which is provided by an organisation called the Access Group. We're working against very, very tight timescales to implement that system. You know, to give you an example, normally it would take 3-4 years to implement a new system. Other authorities in Wales who weren't under WCCIS who've procured a new system have taken around that amount of time, and we're having to do this within 18 months, and we're looking for that new system to be operational later next year. We know that risks start to increase from January this coming year onwards in terms of the level of support into the current WCCIS system, and we're working very hard on contingency planning because absolutely, as you said, Councillor, if there's a failure in the current system that we're operating in, then that causes, huge challenge to us in fulfilling our statutory responsibilities in safeguarding the most vulnerable, hence that being an element of this annual safeguarding report. Work is going on with the services to set out what those contingency plans look like. That's very much going to be work between the Directorate and ICT. And lots of arrangements in place in terms of backing up the data on the current system. But the big question is, if the current system weren't available, how would you still fulfil your functions? How would we not just have to revert to a paper-based system, which is obviously hugely risky for us. So that work is underway. I would not say that we're in a position at the moment where I'm prepared to reduce the risk scores on the risk register or recommend the reduction of those risk scores for the reasons set out. We have got some significant time delay from where we are now to the new system becoming operational. The only assurance that I can give is that it's got certainly the highest priority within my Directorate, the highest priority corporately, and we recognise that we can't do this on our own as Bridgend, so we're working as part of that cluster arrangements with Rhondda and Taff, Merthyr and Vale of Glamorgan, and there's also a very strong role for the Welsh Local Government Association nationally in terms of addressing issues with both the current supplier and the new supplier that we're moving to, but the timescales are very tight and it remains a very significant risk.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'm partially reassured, but obviously, I don't think anyone can be really reassured at this ridiculous situation we're in. It's the elephant in the room. It's like having a nuclear bomb ticking away in your living room. Yeah, okay, maybe an exaggeration, but okay. But in practical terms, would it be useful for this committee to recommend, for instance, the addition of extra resource? Do you feel that you have sufficient resource? I get the feeling that as a committee we should be recommending that increased focus be made here, and if that requires extra resource, then that it is allocated to support this huge risk.
So yes, we could do with additional resource. Let's not beat around the bush here. This is a major transformation of our digital footprint here in Bridgend, with particular reference to all other organisations as well, because they're going to have to use the same system. I think the other thing that I would say is it might be helpful for you to have Lindsay Phillips, who's the lead for the Welsh Local Government Association. So we launched at the Association of Directors, whatever it is, conference in Llandudno earlier this month. We were in Llandudno, same day as council actually. We launched the digital in social care. Sorry? Oh, right, okay, yeah. So I think that we're very well advised. I think the WLGA has picked up a mess. I'm trying to be diplomatic then. I think they picked up a mess when we weren't having that leadership across the board, across Wales. And, I know you don't like talking about national or regional arrangements, Chair, but had they not, we would not be in the position now we are in Bridgend, and we're behind. So...
Yeah, no, and just for context, I don't like talking about it in certain contexts, but when we're looking at benchmarking, then it is useful. So, yes. But would you say then it would be advisory for us to write to Lindsay and get a take from Lindsay? Yeah.
Chair, yeah, very happy also to make contact with Lindsay Phillips. The framework that was launched at conference was called Digital in Social Care DISC, and whilst we're focused on clearly the Connecting Care programme, it's far wider than that around the potential for digital transformation in social care, and I'm sure she'd really welcome talking to committee around that. In terms of the question about additional resources, it's got to be a yes, because we are operating within relatively limited capacity here in Bridgend, both from a service perspective but also from an ICT perspective, and we know that the person who was the head of ICT is currently in another role within the council, but has still got that leadership role in terms of connecting care alongside other duties, which stretches him very, very, very thinly. And it is not just a social services and wellbeing, and indeed education, because education services that Mark is responsible will also be transferring onto the new system, and finance services. So it's not just a safeguarding risk; it's a risk in terms of all those other parts of the council. But it is a digital system, and it needs leadership from an ICT perspective as well, because sometimes I go to national, regional, local meetings and language is talked that I don't understand, and you do need the experts in the room for some of this transition work.
I certainly don't want to put you on the spot because it would be unfair. However, do you have an idea of budget requirements? I'm thinking in terms of obviously we've got budgets in mind at the moment, and if we're going to have to put in place resources, then there must have to be a budget behind it. Do you have any idea of budgets?
We do. It's something that I've been working on jointly with Martin Morgans and Caris Lord, but I don't have that to hand. But yeah, there is a piece of work looking at what that would need to look like if we are to. And it's not all about resources, is it? It never is when you're taking forward transformation, and a lot of this would be one-off rather than recurring funding that we would need to make this change safely.
Thank you. Does that content you, Councillor Haynes?
Again, partially. It's good to know that the level of surveillance on this issue remains high. There's actions taking place. I still feel that there's much more in terms of priority. This is, as directors pointed out, council-wide implications. And I think extra resources. There's a number of room for recommendations here, not just on recommendations, but we'll come to that at a later stage, I suggest.
Yeah, no, I share your concerns. Councillor Gebby?
Thanks very much, Chair. I think the one thing I would say is transformation is not revenue funding. That's the first thing I say if we're talking about budgets. The other request I've made is for us to have, or us, social services particularly, to have a dedicated IT officer. And the reason that I've asked for that is we've got so much transformation at the minute, we've got nobody that we know who to go to. So I'm sharing that. Possibly I shouldn't have, but you know, honest is always better for everyone, I think.
I am quite shocked and aghast to hear that when we rely so heavily in this department, there isn't that dedicated person there, and I think that's absolutely a priority. It's a madness not to. So yeah, we can absolutely support you in that, because I think, yeah, well, I'm not going to say what I think. Thank you very much. Right, cheers. Members, any other questions on this? No? Can't see any hands going up, which is wonderful news. Right, so with that, I will assume there's no more questions, and I will thank our invitees, and if you're not required for the next item, you may leave the meeting. But thank you very much for your time and attendance and input. I'm going to give us a quick, swift 10-minute break as well. So if we could all be back here for 22, that would be lovely. Thank you.